No Further Information, a podcast for cops and sheep shearers. Can you believe there's not a formal word for a sheep shearer? We Googled it. This episode is for cops. We're taking a little detour today, as we're excited to announce the first piece of our premium content. Go to nfipodcast.com, sign up to be a Bob, and join our member community. Then you can log in and get access to special episodes not available on any other platform. This is a one-time fee. The community will continually be updated with additional premium content, and you'll never have to pay a penny more. Unless we get popular. Then you're fucked, because we are going to charge for everything. I'm talking episodes, travel mileage, meals, escorts, male and female, we don't discriminate, and of course our love and respect. All joking aside, we want to give you a reason to spread the show and gain your respect. So, for just $12.99, unlimited access forever with continued premium content available as it's added. As a Bob, you should keep an eye on our social media pages to see when new premium content is posted. Please also subscribe to our mailing list to be notified directly. Today, we're giving you a teaser. Like your college sweetheart, we're playing hard to get. This is commentary for episode 0 by me and producer Bob. Think of it like a DVD extra. I was going to write some joke about, millennials don't know what a DVD is, and remember the good old days, herdy her. That would be cheap, so I decided on this joke. Who threw the suspect down the flight of stairs? No one, he fucking fell. That wasn't very nice. Anyway, this teaser is a short segment of nearly 3 hours of content. I assure you that if you aren't sick of my boring-ass voice yet, you will be afterwards. So, grab a drink, coffee, soda, your favorite snack, snuggle up to your honeyboo, and relax while we listen to today's premium episode teaser. No joke at the end here. We just want your support. Also boobs. It's the No Further Information podcast. Welcome and thanks for listening. The mission of this podcast is true stories from cops. So for this first episode, it sounded like I was fucking sleeping.
Sounds like you recorded that in the closet while your family's sleeping.
I mean, they weren't sleeping. It was in the closet. But a couple people have asked me about the intro music. To me, by now, it seems like the music has sort of become part of the show, and I couldn't envision the show starting with a different intro song.
So what drew you to this song?
It's, hard rock, heavy, it kind of lets you know that you're about to get fucked up, about to put it inside you.
Yeah, I do have to say, like, whenever I hear the first 3 seconds of that song,
Yeah.
I instantly, hear your voice.
Yeah.
NFI podcast.
Yeah.
This episode is about insert stupid jokes here.
Okay. Well, you start fucking writing some jokes then. There'll be no filters, no bullshit, and no drama.
Tell me that you're from the East Coast without telling me that you're from the East Coast.
Part of the reason I wanted to start the podcast is I always used to tell people when I was a cop, when we were standing around the 7-Eleven, coffee in hand, 2 o'clock in the morning, I used to turn to my other officers and I'd say, you ever wonder what people think we're talking about? Because, we'd be laughing, cutting it up, talking about dirty shit. I'm like, I wonder. I had, one time we were standing around the 7-Eleven, and it was 1, 2, 3, 4 agencies at the 7-Eleven in my jurisdiction, and this drunk ass bitch pulls up into the parking lot, and she parks in one of the spots that's like right against the front of the building, like, dong, and hits the little speed bump
on the ground. And she gets out. She's like, "Hi, officers." Yeah, and one of the officers, transit cop, was standing by the door, and he holds it open for her. But he was looking at us like, bitch, this ain't my fucking jurisdiction, because city. And we're like the next thing you hear is like, "Fa-tum, fa-tum, fa-tum," all the fucking patrol doors, closing. They're fucking driving away. Yeah.
People think we're, gearing up for a raid, or if we just went to like some crazy call or tactical operation. Instead, we're talking about, taking a shit, having to perform the rest of the shift with some nasty ass drawers because we didn't make it. Had to run to a hot call and shove some toilet paper down there because we didn't have time to wipe.
Okay. Somebody asked me, "Did you really do that?" I jokingly said yes, but that's never actually happened. It's gotten real fucking close, though.
I was gonna say, if you actually have done that, you're a fucking monster. You should get your life together.
Well, okay, so if anybody out there can identify with this, when you're on duty and you have to take a shit, well, you know what? Female officers can identify with this, right? Because they have to do it every single time. Gun belt. You got to bring your radio. So, our locker room was such that there was enough space for other people to come in and like wash. It's like a regular, picture your regular bathroom. And so I didn't want to carry everything into the stall. So I would take off my gun belt, put it on the counter, and then I would take out my gun and my radio and then walk into the stall to take a shit. And so it's a fucking whole production because I'm on my phone, all right? I'm playing, right?
A must have, yeah.
Right, yeah, of course. What am I going to sit on the fucking toilet and read, soap dispenser? Have you ever forgotten your phone or couldn't have your phone when you're in the fucking shitter and you're like reading like shampoo bottles and shit, And so like, all right, it's like, all right, signal 15, like officer needs assistance or, like units to cover, right? And I'm like, I'm wiping my ass while like trying to fucking close Reddit, whatever the fuck. And like, trying not to get shit on my fucking gun and shit, like, because of the one hand. So, no, it's come damn close, but I've never had to show up with like toilet paper shoved in my ass.
Yeah. So, where is your? So, from what I'm hearing, you're shitting at your department's locker room.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I had a funny story about shitting at the department's locker room. So, our department where I used to work has a fairly decent sized locker room that has 2 bathroom stalls, 1 urinal. This is the male's locker room. And
For people who don't know, the producer is male.
yes, thank you. So there is a lot of activities in and out. Obviously people, taking their lunch, whatever. And one time I was taking a number 2 in one of those stalls, and one of my buddy who was on the same shift as I was recognized my boots underneath the stall, and so he did the one thing that everyone feared the most. He's like, "Hey Bob, is that you in there?" And I was like, "Yeah, man. Can I help you?" And next thing I know, I heard the latch unlocked, and he pushed the stall's door inwards, and there he was, just caught me with my pants down, and that was the last time ever I took a number 2 at the department's locker room.
So what did you do when you had to take a shit?
Fire stations.
So, I mean, what was the big deal? He pushed the door in, so what?
I don't know. Something about that just haunts me to this day.
That's because he was fucking jerking it. That's why he wasn't taking a shit. He was fucking jerking it.
No,
but you was jerking it to some fucking nasty porn too, right?
No, like you said, right? You have to take off all these belts and all these keepers and.
No, the move when someone's taking a shit, especially if you know them, is to turn the fucking lights off, and then now you're shitting in the dark. Yeah.
A lot of poop-centric talk, actually. So I want to give people an insight into what exactly it is we do. I mean, true crime is all the rage right now. And it's a journalistic look at crime from the outside. Every now and then you'll get a body-worn camera, some interview room surveillance footage, the cop testifying on the stand. but so rarely do you get to stand there at the 7-Eleven with us. So rarely do you get to sit in the car with us and bullshit. And oftentimes when a cop does have to talk to somebody, whether it's at a party or some social gathering, there's always a sense of apprehension. This is your chance to listen to exactly what it is cops talk about. Another reason I wanted to start this is throughout my time on the job, and don't worry, I'll get to who I am, I always used to tell my buddies, no one gives a shit about you.
So, how did you come to this conclusion that no one gives a shit about you?
Well, it's the truth, right? I mean, at least in my experience, no one ever cared about my mental health. And when you were in a crisis, you were just sent home. I mean, if they sent you, if they offered EAP, you'd never take it. I mean, you know it's out there, but you're not going to take it because you're going to be stigmatized. It's going to be disclosed. Good luck finding another fucking job. Your family doesn't give a shit. The veneer of being a cop wears off fairly quickly. You know, they come to the graduation, they celebrate with you, then nobody gives a fuck. And, you know, when I first got on the job, I was single. So if I ever went to a party or anything like that, it was either a novelty, like, oh, you're a cop? Like, can I see your gun? Or people fucking hated you, or it just wasn't a thing. I mean, I have no money, I have no prestige. So who truly gives a fuck?
So, in my short stint in law enforcement, that thing was mental health in particular was shoved in my face pretty early on. So, at my department, I'd say about 3 months into the job, one of our sergeants committed suicide, and that changed the whole department's attitude towards mental health. You know, so after that, we hired a counselor, a licensed therapist almost. I'm not sure what her title is, but she is licensed in talking to people about mental health stuff.
Mm-hmm.
And she's made available, accessible to every single officer, is free of charge. Obviously, she's, you know, complied to HIPAA and all that stuff. You can talk to her about all that stuff. But once you start talking about, you know, suicide tendencies and ideations, that's when she start, you know, escalating it. But to my point, I never felt that feeling to where I feel like, yeah, no one gives a shit about me. The citizenry, like, yeah, maybe sure, but like the department overall, in my eyes, I felt like they put enough effort into mental health as to, you know, they put enough effort into it to a point where I felt like, if need to, I can speak to this, you know, person who is till now like my good friend.
Yeah, but that's a box. That's a box that's checked. I'm going to call you out, not to be a dick, but that is the utter definition of fucking hypocrisy, especially when you talk about how your fucking department treated you towards the end. What the fuck was the point of building you up and having somebody available to talk to 24 hours a day, some, you know, chick in a fucking pencil skirt who sat on the fucking couch, when they end up fucking you and making you feel like the way that you do? Anybody out there who's ever been the target of a bullshit fucking IA, or who's been fucking reprimanded or written up or suspended or fired because of an incompetent administration knows how police departments fucking wine and dine you. Yeah, they bring you in with their fucking, you can work off duties anywhere in the state, and you can have beards, and we have an on-staff fucking therapist that you can fuck. Who gives a fuck? Look at how they fucking treated you. You're gonna fucking sit there and tell me that, oh, they cared about you? They don't give a fuck about you.
Well, I felt like a part of it is naivete that drew me towards that, you know, that give me that false sense of security.
Well, yeah, no shit, but it's 2024 and we're talking about it now. And so when we're listening to this episode and, you know, it's like, oh, you know, nobody gives a shit. It's fucking true. Show me where anybody gives two flying fucks. There are a few departments out there, I don't know where the fuck they are. There are a few departments out there that genuinely put their officers first. And these are, chiefs that don't last very long, I'll be honest, because they either get recruited to go elsewhere or they're ousted, because that's not the goal. The goal is not officer health. The goal is not the satisfaction of officers. The goal is maintain your crime statistics, generate revenue for the city, and make the mayor or the city manager look good. That's it. Nobody gives a fuck. I mean, what do you see the hypocrisy in the way your department treated you?
I do, yeah. But,
Yeah, some guy, God rest his soul, blew his fucking brains out. That's sad. And they hired a therapist. Good for fucking them. How'd they treat officers? What's the turnover rate at your old department?
it's ridiculous.
Okay. I mean, nobody gives a fuck. That's the point. It's a box that they check. Just like a previous guest had said, right? It's a fucking box to check. No one would ever fucking think of fucking going to EAP. No one would ever think. The only fucking people around here in this fucking job that truly care are other cops. And that's a fucking, that's a double-edged sword too, because you can't just have cops as your support network. But no, you find me a department with its cops that say, yeah, they fucking genuinely care about our fucking mental well-being. And I'm like, get the fuck out of here. You either have small podunks, in Texas anyway, who don't have the resources. You have medium-sized departments like yours who end up fucking their offices. Or you have large departments where we ain't got time for that. Our fucking murder rate is up by 212%. So don't give me that. I'm not yelling at you. I'm just saying, like, yeah, that's what I legitimately believe. And I implore anyone to come on here, especially administrators. Hey, anyone with a star or more, come and fucking prove me wrong.
Shut the fuck up. Do your job.
I agree with this guy.
Go home.
He's got a lot of
Jerk
good things to say.
And go to bed. Now, what do I mean by no one gives a shit about you?
See, if you just listen for 2 seconds, I'd explain it to you.
There's too much made about cops are celebrated heroes and they go through the worst of the worst and we need to take care of these people. It's the same bullshit that we feed veterans, right? All veterans are heroes and we have to treat these veterans better than, though the bottom line is nobody does, right? Everybody knows that the veteran healthcare system is broken and we treat veterans like shit. Well, it's the same thing with cops. We understand that cops see the worst of the worst. Not all cops, but we understand that some cops see the worst of the worst. Who really gives a shit? It ain't our supervisors, right? For as much as they talk about, cops need a safe space and open dialogue and the Texas Peer Network, which is the state-sponsored officer mental health assistance hotline here in Texas. We have our families and spouses who have to listen to our stories. If you're anything like me, I eventually got over it, but it got to a point where I didn't want to talk to anybody. I'd come home and they ask, "Oh, how was your day?" "It was fine." Little did she know I was walking through a pool of blood 10 minutes ago. And all you can really talk to are other cops. And when that lifeline is cut off, who do you really have? You can't talk to a shrink.
That actually
way.
that actually happened to me. That actually happened. I took a call. It was a long night. It started right at the start of the shift. And if I give too many details, then it was such a significant case. But rich, affluent neighborhood, and the call was a home invasion. Now, I've never been to like a real home invasion up until that point. Like it was like, somebody tried to open the door, or we got home and the guy. I've had that. We got home and the guy went running out the back. So I was like, technically home invasion. And in Texas, there's no like home invasion statute. It's just burglary. This was we respond. The husband and wife are wealthy, and they were cased by basically a roving band. They fucking tied him up. They tied up the wife, duct taped her, beat the fucking shit out of her. left her on the ground while they went through the house. When the husband came home, he's like, I wonder why Jane's not responding. They catch him outside, beat the fucking shit out of him, tie him up in duct tape, and they're literally lying in pools of their own blood. And so we come in, we're trying to clear the house. She managed to free herself, call 911, and then when we got there, she's trying to fucking... So that occupied my whole night, obviously. And I'll never forget that that department was really far from my house. The commute was really long. And I would go days because of, working overnights. By the time I get home, they're gone. And then by the time I have to get up and go back to work, they're not home yet. So I would go days without seeing them. And I remember the first time seeing my wife after that. It's like, how have the past few days have been? Like, they've been fine. Like, it didn't even dawn on me that I, walked, had fucking blood on my shoes.
I had a similar call to where there was a lot of blood involved. Not as significant as yours, but this call stuck out to me as well because, looking back at it, I was like, I've never seen blood splurted from a person before. So it was Christmas Eve. I was working night, and we got I think it initially came out as a medical call. So FD came up. Well, I'm not too sure. It was some sort of mental health issues, disturbance with a weapon involved. So they dispatch police out as well as FD, but FD would stage until PD make sure it's clear and then wave them in. So me and my buddy was one of the responding officers, and the call notes was very vague. He was like, "There's a lot of blood everywhere. There's a box cutter in the house. The caller is the roommate, so very clueless here. What's going on?" We came to the apartment, and the roommates opened the door, and he's holding a box cutter. So I was like, "Hey, do you mind putting that down?" So he put it down, stepped away from the knife, and we took it, we secured it, and I was like, "Hey, man, what's going on?" And this guy, I think he doesn't speak a lot of English. He was a Spanish speaker.
That makes two of you. Yeah. Right. The blind leading the blind.
Well, luckily, my buddy speaks English. So this guy, I think he didn't understand a lot of English, but he was able to point to the bathroom. And so I was like, okay, let's get him out of here and clear the apartment, which was not a very big apartment. We cleared it. Nobody else was in there. And then we cleared the bathroom, and we looked into it. You can see right when you step into the doorway, you can see the reflection of him in the mirror reflected back in the shower stall that someone is sitting on their butts and slouching over. And so I was like, oh shit. Step up in it, and I shit you not, this is the first time I've seen blood splurting from someone's wrist, like the movies. Just
you're pointing to your elbow.
Yeah, from his he cut himself in the elbow. Right here.
I'm so glad. Hold on a second. I'm so glad you're pointing to that part of your body, because what is that part of your body called?
Your elbow.
Ready? Your crelbo.
The fuck's a crelbo?
It's the inside of your elbow.
Is that a medical term?
No, it's not. It's going to be a unilaterally accepted term that no one ever talks about. I just fucking thought about this the other day in the shower, because I learned this term a long time ago, and I've never had the chance to use it. I've never had the chance to use it on the street. I've never had a chance to use it here. It's your crelbo. Ladies and gentlemen, he's pointing to his crelbo. It's the wedge between your fucking your bicep and your forearm, but it's not your elbow. It's the inside. All right, you can go on.
Yeah, the crelbo. Right? Did I say it correctly?
Get that going. Hashtag crelbo.
I know, right?
That'll be the poster for this fucking episode. Crelbo. Hashtag crelbo.
Word of the day, crelbo. So I've seen literal blood splurting out of this guy's crelbo. And me and my buddies, obviously, we make sure he didn't have any weapons on him, and he was.
So what was this call? I mean, was it suicide?
It came out as a disturbance.
Right, but what did it turn out to be?
Turns out to be an APAL. Yeah, I think I wrote it up as an APAL because this guy tried to kill himself, and I think
What the fuck? What? God, what the fuck did I ask you? Did I say it's a suicide, right? A suicide attempt.
yes,
Okay, yeah.
APAL.
Okay, all right.
So
Jesus fucking Christ.
yes,
All right.
thank you.
Yeah, so a lot of blood.
Yeah, so I stepped in a pool of blood to get to him. I cut his sleeves up all the way to his armpit, and I, put a tourniquet around his arm. And obviously, by that point, we waved fire departments in. So
Because they were, saving their progress on their fucking Xbox.
yeah, so put on his tourniquet. Apparently, he cut both of his crowbows, so he lost a lot of blood by the time we got there. And from what I heard from CID afterwards was that he wanted to kill himself because it's Christmas Eve. He didn't have any families here, and he was, he was losing his custody with his kid, and he lost his job like a couple weeks back. So this guy was just in a terrible, terrible spot. And so he decided to kill himself the only way he can, which, there was a box cutter nearby, so he decided to do that. But that is what I have kind of analogous to your experience, whereas, step into a pool of blood and then come home, to me, to them is breakfast. To me is dinner. I eat dinner, and, like my family would ask me, hey, everything okay? You seem a little like, sluggish. And then like, why's your pants new?
Right.
Because I was like, I had to take my pants off and give it to FD to like, to clean it, like to.
Hold on a second. FD cleans your pants?
They have a special laundry for FD in a situation where if you get blood or like, bodily fluids on your clothes, they can disinfect it.
What are you fucking too good for the fucking dry cleaner?
Well, I don't want to, like give her too much, stuff, but
it's a fucking occupational hazard. Oh, is it because the dry cleaner is your fucking cousin? Is that what it is? No, I mean, all joking aside, right? Like that I mean, so what do you tell them? What do you tell your fucking family?
Nothing.
You know what I'm saying? Right, yeah. Like you can't be like, hey, family member, like, yeah, the reason I had to change my pants is because they were soaked with someone else's fucking blood. You can't. I mean,
how do you even say?
How do you even fucking say that?
And even I felt like there's something inside me that tells me even if I told them, they wouldn't understand the magnitude of which I'd just been through.
Yeah, I mean it's we've had guests on, right, to talk about like what they went home until we had one guest who said, I don't want her to go through that trauma that I went through, so we'll talk about it more in the episode, but I mean, we're slowly eliminating our choices who we could talk to, and, that's why we have to have each other.
We understand the stigma. That's what people say. Oh, well, nowadays, it's different. People understand officer mental health.
That's you.
Bullshit.
You're the
Who the fuck doesn't know that you're going to see your
shit.
shrink? Small departments, large departments.
Now that you say that, I felt like I still have one foot in. I have one foot in the law enforcement world, and I have one foot in the,
in your current job,
in normal people world. I felt like because I've had only a short stint in law enforcement, but it was long enough for me to get a grasp of how it is to be in law enforcement, and so I felt like I'm in a different mindset or a different headspace compared to you, who's been on the job for a million years.
Okay, it wasn't that long, but I don't understand what you're saying.
What I'm saying is, yes, I was in law enforcement, but I wasn't in law enforcement long enough to where I get really, really influenced by it. Does that make sense?
It didn't have time to have an effect on you?
I guess that would be a better way of saying it, yeah.
Let's just mark it here. I'll always say it better than you. No, I mean, okay, yes. But I'm arguing the facts on its face, which is to say, they look. I'm going to use that same expression. They wine and dine you.
They did, yeah.
especially if you try to use EAP, right? It's pretty obvious that you're seeing a shrink. You're untouchable. Everybody knows it. Nobody wants to work with you. So what do? You bottle it up. I think by giving cops a chance to talk and talk amongst each other, to talk to someone who understands what they're going through, it's a bit of a catharsis. No judgment, no criticisms or critiques unless they're warranted.
So when I talk about criticisms or critiques, unless they're warranted, you think I've done a? Do you think I've? I mean, you're a listener, hopefully.
I am.
You think I've done a decent job calling people out on the bullshit when warranted? I mean, nothing comes to mind right away, but
yeah, I mean, that's one of the character traits that I like about you. You know, no homo here, but
and my cock.
that yes, that and also
Oh, my crowbar.
#Krobo. Yeah, that's one of the things I like about you is that, you know, you're very knowledgeable in the law, you know, as to when it's warranted to correct somebody or call them out on their bullshit. One moment in particular that stood out to me was when that Detective Bob. I think this is a premium content episode as well. But when Detective Bob tried to get a girl into an interviewing room, even though he already has the arrest warrant.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
Oh,
and he
okay.
was,
yeah,
and
okay.
he was trying to, you know, like, try to work with her, like, even though after she notified him that, like, hey, I have a lawyer.
No, I think what she said was my parents have called a lawyer or something like that.
Yeah.
My parents have gotten me a lawyer, and I think she was 17, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think she was 17. I think she was the age of criminal majority to where he didn't need a magistrate to Mirandize her. And he said he basically went back. I mean, you can remember better than I can, but he basically said something like, well, you know, she didn't invoke technically, you know, wink, wink, nudge, nudge.
And that's when you call him out on his bullshit, right? Because my reaction to that episode, whenever he gets to that point, was, yeah, you know, whenever they mention the word lawyer, attorney, whatever, you time out immediately right there.
And well, okay,
you know,
so that, I mean, I don't go that far, you know. It's all about constructive notice. So, and it really it not to call it a gray area, but it really is a case by case basis. And one of the things I said to Bob, I think I said something like, there was a huge disparity in bargaining power.
Yeah.
Between he and her. Not that that's necessarily a factor to consider from a criminal perspective. For folks who aren't in the know, when we talk about disparities in bargaining power, that's more of a contracts thing, you know, like civil law, you know, contracts and negotiations, and whether or not there's a disproportionate bargaining power between the parties. But I like to think that some of those common law and civil law principles apply in criminal law too, if you're going to be a good cop. And so when we talk about, you know, here's this young girl, here's this cop. Sorry, Bob, if you're listening, you fucking old as fuck. But you know, he's in his late 40s, and
with a gun strapped to his hip.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Right. And when she says, "You've got the warrant," you know, and I used to tell my cops all the time. I used to say, "Never let them know what you're thinking. Never let them know what you're thinking." You know, I think I told somebody one time. I said, "It's not speak softly or carry a big stick, right? It's speak softly and carry a big stick. Hey, you know, we're here. We're talking about it, and I don't know if you know why you're here, but you want to tell me about Joe Schmo? Well, my parents have called a lawyer for me. Okay, well, I'll tell you what, Sheila. Since you've said that your parents have already more or less summoned an attorney for you, I wouldn't feel right in asking you any questions while you're here and not free to leave about this case that I'm investigating. Unfortunately, what I am going to tell you, and this is when you This is when you go like this, right? You go, you do the Consuela, like, Consuelo, ven para acá, tráeme mi whiskey, por favor. You know, that's when you make the signal, right? And you send in the two uniforms. You're like, unfortunately, Sheila, what I do have to tell you is I have a warrant out for murder for your arrest. So you are under arrest. I need you to stand up, turn around, put your hands behind your back, and you're going to be taken to the county jail. That's when she goes, what? Huh? No, it's his head. Nah, sorry, Sheila. You know, you kind of had your chance, but I didn't kill him. You know, like,
Noted.
There's some rage you know.
Yeah,
you know,
noted.
or better yet, or which I had this one time. Good, I'm fucking glad you. Oh, okay. You know, there you can go. End of contact. Beep beep. You know, so you know, I mean, I just. If it, in my hypothetical, in the hypothetical I just explained now, and in Bob's scenario, which here's the thing too, listeners, we're not alleging that Bob did anything wrong. You know, he got the job done, right? And I believe he did say, correct me, I believe he did say, and we can do more of this if we ever decide to do his bonus episode commentary, right?
Yeah.
Or his premium episode commentary. But it, you know, it's we're not saying that. I believe he said that he did stop the interview. So in Bob's scenario, let's say he had pressed on. He was like, well, she didn't really ask for a lawyer. And then in my hypothetical, weren't the same means achieved? She goes to jail, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Now it's 14 months later, and there's a motion to suppress that interview. Which one's going to look better? You know, I'm not saying that in Bob's scenario, and this is Bob's hypothetical scenario where he pressed. Remember, listeners, Bob stopped, right, and he just hooked her up and took her. But in Bob's hypothetical, where he's like, well, you technically didn't ask for a lawyer. And then if he continued interviewing her, that's scenario A. And then my hypothetical scenario B, when those two scenarios come up for a motion to suppress, what's the judge going to say? What's the court going to say?
You always go in the favor of the, you know.
Right. Whenever, just like the civil standard, motion for summary judgment, deference goes to the non-movement, right?
Exactly.
And so, or in this case, the accused. Well, I mean, come on, you know, I mean,
Yeah. To go back to your initial question, like, yeah, I think you do a really good job of calling people out on their bullshit. Prime example, you know, 2 minutes into this podcast, you call me out on my bullshit, you know.
That's a fucking daily occurrence.
And more importantly, just a place to talk, just a place to get it off your chest. Now, I will admit that I've always wanted to do something like this. You know, now, obviously, you're coming out of the academy 15 minutes. Your first thought isn't, I want to start a podcast where cops get to talk. Also, what the fuck is a podcast? Because it's, you know, 1999.
I wanted to clarify the 1999 thing, because if I say 1999, it sounds like I've been in the job for fucking 24 years. I was an auxiliary cop back in the 90s, from 99 to 02, and then I left New York and moved here. So it's not fair for me to count that as law enforcement experience. But auxiliary police officers in the NYPD, they do have a fake academy at the station, at the precinct. So you'd go to the precinct every, you know, whatever, like Tuesday and Sunday, or I fucking forgot what it was. And, you know, you quote unquote graduate, and you are awarded a certificate. It's like, what is it? It's like unsworn police without firearms training, or something like that.
Do you get a shield?
Yeah. No, we have shields, police IDs. We have in New York, it's tax ID. It's a 6-digit number.
Okay.
So we're because way back when, auxiliary cops were not paid at all, and then right around the time I got on, believe it or not, ladies and gentlemen, there's an Auxiliary Police Benevolent Association. The APBA lobbied for a stipend because, you know, auxiliaries do spend money in uniforms and travel and gas and stuff. So you got a yearly check around Christmas for $250, which was like back then, you know, it was like fucking, you know, oh my God, I've never seen this much money. And we had to be assigned tax ID numbers for that purpose. So we had a police ID in New York. The police IDs are vertical, and if you have a red background, you're sworn and armed. If you have a blue background, you're a civilian. You're just a civilian or unarmed. So we had police ID. You know, it's a blue background, And yeah, no, we look like cops for all intents and purposes.
So what is your common assignments as an auxiliary cop?
So auxiliaries do exactly what police do. So they would be in RMPs and patrol units. We do foot patrol. We do transit patrol, housing districts. So New York, the NYPD, it used to be just the NYPD, and then they merged with the transit police and the housing authority police. Housing authority is like the projects.
Yeah.
So the city of New York used to have New York City Housing Authority Police. All three merged. And so you have auxiliaries assigned to what are called police service areas, the PSAs. That's for housing. So PSA 1 through 16. And then you have precincts, that's patrol. So you have the 86 precincts. And then you have transit districts. And there are, I don't know, I'm making this up, like 22 transit districts or something. So, TD1, TD7, TD13. And so you could be an auxiliary in any of those commands.
Oh, that is cool.
And then eventually auxiliaries got put on SOD, Special Operations, which is undercover. And maybe one of these days I'll tell a story about that. But I did SOD with Queens North Vice Squad, QNVS. Okay, so the boroughs are broken up into patrol boroughs. It's kind of like the bigger district. So you have Patrol Borough Queens North, Patrol Borough Queens South. You have Brooklyn North, Brooklyn South. Staten Island is just Staten Island. Manhattan is North-South, and then you have the Bronx. So the 115, where I was assigned, is Queens North. So I got whored out, basically, to Queens North Vice. And we did alcohol buy-busts, graffiti buy-busts, switchblade buy-busts. And so I did that for a while. So, I mean, auxiliaries are,
It's a great experience.
Yeah. Oh, God. You had 19.
Is that how old you were?
Yep.
Whenever?
Yep.
Man.
Yep. I got my shield night. And this, depending on when this episode airs, I recently posted a copy of my memo book, my scratch book from showing Shield Night. Shield Night was November 8th, 1999. And I had just turned 19. And you're walking the street in a uniform with a fucking shield, and unarmed in the city of New York.
So how do you protect yourself with a taser?
With this, baby, with this. I'm holding up my fist.
Did you have a nightstick?
Yeah, we had a stick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
Okay. So you mentioned that there is a housing authority.
Yeah, well, it's the NYPD now.
Gotcha. So did you ever have to do one of those?
No, because I was assigned to the 115, so that's patrol.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, but
so let me ask you this question. I read this from a book. It's called Blue Blood by Edward Conlon. He is an NYPD. I think he retired.
Yeah, he was a negotiator.
Yes, so he's done a lot of stuff in NYPD, and he says that
he developed the NYPD's hostage negotiation program.
Really?
Ed Conlon? Oh, yeah. He became a professor at John Jay, which is like a college in New York. Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's like the OG negotiator. He's the one who coined the phrase "talk to me." That was the NYPD hostage negotiation. In fact, my old lieutenant, shout out to CS, he got on the hostage negotiation team with ESU, and he loved it. He loved that assignment. I think he retired a couple of years ago.
Yeah, there's a lot of high profile officers out of NYPD. Anyway, my question is, he coined the term vertical patrol.
Yeah, that's for housing district.
There you go. So yeah, like when I first read it, I was like, what is vertical patrol? And he says it would take the elevator all the way up to the roof, mm-hmm. and then just walk the stairs, and
you have to walk the roofs too.
Yeah, and then he would run into all the random stuff that you've seen on the daily basis. People doing stupid shit, smoking,
drugs, hand to hand,
having
fucking,
sex, whatever the fuck. That is to me for a person that grew up in Texas here, that is very uncommon. As a police officer.
I forgot the codes, but I want to say it was like a 95P for patrol, 95V for vertical, and it's like there's different patrols. Obviously, patrol doesn't do that, but every now and then, if you for example, you'd respond to a job in an apartment building, and in New York, apartment complexes aren't like they are in Texas, right? Here in Texas, they're sprawling, right? So there are multiple buildings, 22 buildings with 3 floors each, and so if you have to go to apartment 2201, that's building 22, or whatever, right? But in New York, they're vertical. They're vertical. So yeah, you if you go to a job on the 10th floor, and then on the way back down, you can just call out, 5 auxiliary beat 7, 95 Victor at this location, 33, 36, 70th Street or whatever.
And that's where I also learned the term caller.
Yeah.
That's arrest, But very, very interesting book,
I loved the NYPD so much, and the culture, the camaraderie. Yeah, I loved it a lot. Plus guys that actually sounded like me.
Thanks for listening, sharing, and subscribing to the show. We hope you enjoyed this premium episode trial, and we'd love for you to join our community of Bobs. Of course, we'll continue to put out regular episodes every week for free. Make sure to comment, rate, and review to tell me how amazing my hair is. Krelbo reveal at 500 subscribers. If you haven't noticed, we have a link tree with all relevant links to make life easier. As always, you can reach out to us at podcast@nfipodcast.com. Make sure to include your social security number and mother's maiden name. We'll see you out there. Stay safe and remember, do your job.